still the people joining, but we can kick off. And just a few things before we start. Like there is a Q&A chat where you can put any questions if you have during the time of the presentation. We can take it like by the end, or you can raise your hand. Myself or Yaman will be happy to answer those questions. Just to give an overview of Dimension Data, we started our operations in Saudi back in 2007 as one of the key contributors for the Middle East and Africa region in Dimension Data. Like we are very committed in Saudi market and being here like almost 13 years. So just to give an overview, we are doing this presentation with our Cisco partner, one of our critical vendors, Cisco. The partnership with Cisco goes like 28 years back, where we started our early journey on the Dimension Data. One of the early partner we tied up was with Cisco. Dimension Data was formed in 1983, part of NTT Group, wholly owned by NTT Group. We operate around in 49 countries. With NTT, we operate more than 200 countries worldwide. Very much committed to transform conversation into digital world. We do a lot of projects in Saudi when it comes to the public sector, banking sector, or large enterprise. Cisco is one of the most strategic partner for us. Globally, we run our massive revenue generates on the Cisco side worldwide. Moving forward, like where we play the role very closely and tie up with Cisco is, as everyone knows, Cisco is technology partner technology. Cisco brings the technology, and we come and play the role of services integration, where we come and deploy or implement those technologies into our client base. What's our core focus area? Like what we say is intelligent innovation, like which comes into different forms in different areas, either it's business application, transforming your business application into the new generation, or getting into intelligent customer experience with omni-channel, with the CX, with the AI, using bots and those kind of solutions, what we have. Then we get into the workplace. This is where we'll be touching more of the presentation today. Modern collaboration, enterprise mobility, and enterprise productivity. Then it comes to intelligent infrastructure, where we have the data centers. We go and build the data center based on SDN technology from Cisco. We have few of massive references which we are doing from last 6 to 7 years based on Cisco ACI. Hybrid WAN, is it SD-WAN or any other solutions, wired or wireless? This is where we get involved and do the infrastructure solutions. Then the last, which covers overall, is the security. Either it's on-prem security, cloud security, which we will touch base in the presentation today. What we do for all this line of business, really, we do the services. On right-hand side, if you see, we start from the consulting services. That's where we do early engagement with our clients, try to understand your business goals, business requirements, translate that into technical one, and come up. So, or sometimes we get into the assessments. We come and do the assessment for you to understand what you have today, what's your business goals, and what's missing. And that's where we get come and enable those things, what's missing. And then we do technical services, like let's say you are going to implement a collaboration solution or security solution. That's where we come and do the real professional service, like hands-on job, to make sure that the configuration and all is done. Then we have a couple of different model of supports. One is support services, which is like pretty much standard, where we tie up with the Cisco SmartNet and provide on-site resources from Dimension Data to cover that one. So that's the pretty reactive mode support. And then we have managed services. We have managed service center in Saudi where we operate 24/7. What we do in that one is like it's more of proactive method. We monitor your network, we manage your network on your behalf. If there is any on-site intervention need to be done, we send the engineer on-site to tackle this scenario. So that's where we do, and what and how we deliver those services. So this is the full stack of services what we do, whether it's on-prem solution or it's a private cloud solution or a public cloud solution. As said, like we get very early start from the consulting services, getting into managed services, and getting into technology infrastructure services. All the towers where we come and do the further collaboration and communication, data center networks, cloud infrastructure, and services. I think I missed one slide in the start, which was the introduction to myself and Iman. Just to give a quick run through, I'm Musa Kazim, Services Director in Dimensionator Middle East, part of Dimensionator from last 13 years. Since I came to Saudi, I know Yaman very well. Yaman is my co-speaker today. Yaman is very passionate at collaboration, SE leader. He looks after the in Cisco for the Middle East and Africa. He's a very well deep dive techie guy on the collaboration side. So I will pass on to Yaman. Yaman, I'll stop presentation from my side. You can take over, please.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much, Musa. And thank you for the good introduction in this case. So let me probably kind of just say, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for giving us the chance to present to you today. So Assalamu alaikum. Very happy and very pleased to really see you. And over the next 30 minutes, I will actually just give you an introduction about what are these smart virtual workplace solutions that we can jointly offer between Cisco and Dimension Data. I hope you can all see my video because my presentation will be 100% on my video as you see right now. So just to kind of really make sure we set the stage on where we are and how things actually changing with the new changes that happened across the world over the past 15 or 16 months. We're going to be talking about that changing workplace, how things have actually changed over that time. Then we'll talk about, okay, what does that mean for our offices? How we really need to transform from what used to be big, massive office spaces to be smarter and more intelligent workplaces. And lastly, I want to make sure that we talk about what happens if we happen to be working remotely, because we know the world is actually completely transformed. We know a lot of users will actually still going to be working remotely. So how can you actually enable secure remote work capabilities? So let me just kind of set the stage right now. And we really kind of go about how things have actually changed. So if you want to take a snapshot of what actually really happened over the past, let's say 15 or 16 months in this case, we know that there used to be a percentage of workers who used to be working remotely, and there used to be a percentage of workers who happened to be working from the office. Back in March 2020, so just a little bit over 1 year, this completely changed. We know that almost everyone started to really work from home, started to really leverage technology to really be able to work remotely. And if you look at the stats that you see on my slide right now, you can say that there's 34% of people actually have started working from home 8 or more days a month. That's prior to COVID-19. This actually got completely changed. And the number of remote participants into a single meeting, as an example, shifted from 8% all the way to 98%. So you can imagine this thing, almost 98% or almost all your meetings and gatherings in this case had at least one remote participant. And we've been through this thing for quite some time, but there's really been a big change to how things have actually happened. Because what really happened in addition to working remotely is people started putting in long hours and started really sitting in front of their laptops, computers, and video devices. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, this actually contributed to what's known as cyber fatigue. And you can see on the stats on the side is 42% of that cyber fatigue was actually attributed to having a platform or multiple platforms from multiple vendors, which impacted the capabilities of people to be able to contribute, be productive, and to be engaged in their day-to-day work. So cyber fatigue is a very serious issue in this case. Now, with cyber fatigue, there's something else that actually also happened, which is we started to see threats. And you see that we had threat actors trying to really take advantage and capitalize on current events. And that, in turn, is negatively impacting both the enterprise security as well as the productivity of our employees. So we know that the biggest issue that comes in with working remotely is by far, it's about device posture, and then user identity. How do I make sure that I really know what's going on my device since it happens to be connected remotely? And then how do you actually know that this is the actual user that's saying that they're getting access remotely? And especially that's every role and every user or almost every user started to really work remotely. So these sorts of things are actually very important to keep in mind. And as you can see that 81% of breaches were actually happening because of compromised credentials. So getting used to working with just passwords is not going to cut it anymore. We have to retransform how we do this thing. And I'll talk about how we can do that. Now, with every threat, there is an opportunity. And we see that there is a great opportunity right now to transform. Digital transformation is the perfect time right now when you really are actually transforming how you're working. And it's very good to really start introducing technologies and capabilities that will help you transform your business. How can we do that? We can do that by focusing on three things. Number one, you want to make sure that we empower the remote worker. They have the right tools in this case. We need to give them the right set of tools that will keep them productive, secure, and engaged. Number two, we know that there's people going to be going back to the office, and we know there are people actually working remotely, but there's people going to be working hybrid. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. How do you actually make sure that this is still, that journey in between is actually still taken care of? Three, as we start getting more people vaccinated and hopefully a lot of really businesses opening up again to receive customers, partners, and employees inside their offices, it's important that we actually have the right protocols to do the safe return to office. So these three things are quite important, and that's actually I'm going to touch on right now is I'll talk about how we really enable the secure remote worker and how we actually do the safe return to office. I'll start off the first thing with the safe return to office, because this is quite important in this case. So we want to really do safe return to office. That means our existing workplaces, they don't cut it anymore. We need to really have smarter, more intelligent workplaces. And when we're talking about workplaces, it's not just kind of a place or just a set of desks and offices and that's it. We didn't approach it this way. So at Cisco, what we do is we really think of it as a journey. So we start off saying, where did that user actually start their day? From the moment he or she wanted to really come to the office, what sorts of protocols do I need to really have? Do I need to really make sure that they check capacity before they arrive on site? For example, do we have enough people or enough seats or enough offices to still maintain social distancing while enabling them to really come to the office? Or should we tell them that it's full today? Then when they arrive, how do you actually make sure that there's a proper procedure? Because when something is occupied, there should be a cleaning schedule afterwards. How do you actually do this capability of getting people to check into desks and to be able to really tell when did they actually start who did actually start. And then if there's a desk next door to it, I want to make sure it's blocked. But then I want to make sure it's like I really am able to really monitor capacity. How many people happen to be inside the building right now? So I don't really exceed guidelines. And there could be hefty fines if I do that. And then when they really want to collaborate, how do you make sure that when they go to the meeting rooms, we don't really cram everyone inside that meeting room, and we really then defeat the purpose of working together by impacting people and getting them very close in close proximity to each other. So how do you actually still establish the guidelines within the meeting rooms? And then how do you actually make sure that whatever sort of things, after they're really done with their work, I still enable them to work remotely? But then how do you make sure that the cleaning schedule is actually automatically kicked in, that they're automatically checked out from their desks, as we'll see in a few minutes, and then they're still being very much engaged and productive throughout the day? So to be able to do that, you need to really have a platform. And what Cisco with Dimension Data we can do is we can really provide you with the perfect platform that's based on Webex. And Webex is a suite of, let's say, products and technologies that will really transform how you do a safe return to office. What really started off as a meeting platform has really been expanded, and we really kind of put under the umbrella of Webex everything that we want to really have from a collaboration, all focused from an end user experience. Of course, the Webex app is our single unified application that will allow you to do messaging, meeting, and calling, which is the foundational elements for people to collaborate. This is very essential whether you happen to be inside the office or you happen to be working remotely. And this app is available across all platforms, as you see here. So you happen to be on mobile, happen to be on desktop, or you happen to be using video devices, the Webex app is actually all integrated across these experiences. Of course, the Webex app has been enhanced over the years. So what really started off with a simple app just for us to really enhance productivity and keep team members engaged is actually right now being transformed. I talked about safe return to office, and one of the important things when people working remotely is cyber fatigue was a big issue, like we mentioned. And the Webex app, what will actually allow you to do is it will be able to give you personal insights. This is private, confidential information. Will tell you, well, how many meetings have you done? How many meetings have you done after working hours, like 4 or 5 or 6 p.m.? Then who are the people you're really most talking to in this case? Oh, are you doing so many kind of scheduled sessions? Oh, are you impacting your health basically by doing so many of X, Y, Z? That sort of insight based on what you really do on the Webex platform is we will leverage Webex Graphs, which is under the hood technology that will give you insights and information about your daily work, your activities. But get this, this is completely private and confidential information. We will only make it visible with personalized data for the individual. Managers, organizations will have a summary, but they will not have a breakdown. This is not snooping into people, what they do across the day. This is making sure that they have the right set of technologies to make them more productive and more aware of how they spend their time. And of course, with the Webex app, we have a single unified management. We call it the Webex Control Hub. So it's a single pane of glass. I can go in and see what are my devices, what sorts of meetings do I need to troubleshoot sessions live or check on historical data. And I want to be able to tell how many of these have issues, how many of these are actually right now, what are the top utilized meeting rooms? Oh, do I have any sort of alerts? Did something go wrong? Did I have additional capacity than what I was expecting in the office and so forth? And I'll show you a quick demo of that one as well in a few seconds. And of course, there is no collaboration suite that's complete without fusing hardware and software. So when you bring in the best of software with hardware and you bring them, bridge them together, that's when you have the perfect experience. And that's the Apple-like experience that Cisco can provide. So we make sure that you have continuity of the experience from the Webex app all the way to the Webex devices. And these devices are very intelligent. So they really detect people. I'll show you some of these capabilities. They detect people. They're able to really do facial recognition. We're able to really count how many of them actually happen to be inside the meeting room. And they can show you information about, hey, do I have any issues or not? And it's actually all AI driven right now. So it does have the capability of, for example, using voice commands to do complete steering of the meeting, starting the meeting, stopping the meeting, and so forth. All that's possible by using just two simple keywords, which is OK Webex, and it will actually start doing it for you. Now, obviously, I was talking about the video devices for meeting rooms, which we really have for across everything from the corner office to the boardroom. How about the desks? What Cisco have actually been recently launching is we really launched a series of products that's really aimed specifically for the desk, for the small huddle rooms, all the way to corner offices, open spaces, and home offices. And this is very essential for doing smart workplaces with things like the Desk Hub. The Desk Hub will give you the capability to do touchless experience. You come in, your identity is on the phone. Once you actually come into the Desk Hub, you'll be able to really log in and get your kind of personal contact information, meeting, and so forth, all being transformed from the Webex app onto your mobile phone to the Desk Hub. You don't need to log in anymore. This is all automated in that experience. And of course, with this nice fuse of collaboration suite and capabilities, we'll be able to transform the experiences. And let me show you some of these ones. So we mentioned that you can do people detection. We mentioned that you can do voice commands, but what you can actually also do is you can also do facial recognition. So you can have the names of the people who happen to be inside the building. So you can really tell who's actually using, let's say, your desk devices or your meeting devices. So you can really find out all that information ahead of time in a very nice and intelligent way. We talked about this complete video experience that's coming in. It doesn't just do video conferencing anymore. It will actually be able to really be playing signage information. So anything from awareness or campaigns or emergencies or guidelines on social distancing as an example. But then we actually have with every single video device is a room navigator unit. This unit will be able to capture your environmental sensor information. So for example, humidity, temperature, air quality, and so forth, and being able to really feed this thing over to you. And that becomes very essential. Why do I say this is very essential? Because it can make your life a lot easier in this case. Now, enough talking about the smart workplaces. Let's see it in action. So what I'll do right now is I will actually pivot over to basically a simple demo that we have that will show you what that experience looks like. So let me just kind of select a share, and here is my desk. So I'm actually sharing with you right now my experience, and this is actually just a small clickable demo that will talk about how the Cisco Collaboration Suite can enable you to have the smart workplace environment. So we're talking about the home offices, obviously. So you can really have the power of the Desk Pro to really make sure they have proper video experience. They have more engaging experience for executives, but also there's the Webex app that's available on desktops. And this is the same system that can be used for doing things like digital signage like you see right now. We mentioned that employees will come to the office. So the moment that they really come to the office, we want to make sure that we have information about Wi-Fi, how many users happen to be connected, how many are actually inside the building, and how do you actually make sure that you get to the office and really be able to book a desk. This sort of check-in experience is completely transformed. And how that actually transformation is happening is when you really arrive to the desk or to the office, you don't actually go, you want to minimize as much as possible the human interactions for things that are actually unnecessary. So you want to make sure that you try to keep the social distancing rules as much as possible. So what you can do is you can have the Cisco Webex Desk Pro, which is what you see in this picture, and saying, hey, I'm coming in, I'm visiting this office, and I want to really pick a place, which is I want to select a desk. So I can really select that from scanning a QR code that's going to be showing here on the screen. And once I do and scan this QR code, I'll be able to really check into the building saying, you know what? I checked in the building. I know that Yaman right now arrived to the office, as an example. Let's say after I actually arrived to the office, I'm able to really kind of come through, but I need to really book a meeting room or a desk and so forth. So there will be a nice kiosk that's available, that's interactive, and then you can really augment it with the capabilities of signage and video capabilities that you see here. So I want to go from first floor to the fourth floor, so I can click on it. Then when I check this corner meeting room if it's available, and I see it's available, so I can go ahead and book it and able to really schedule that meeting room. Once I'm actually done and I want to get to the meeting rooms, I can go to that meeting room. And immediately when I come into the meeting room, I see signage information that tells me everything about the room capacity and tells me there's maximum people, 2 people who can happen to be inside the space. But let's say if there's 4 people, how do you make sure that this is actually taken care of in this case? So it will actually give you information detecting using AI technology inside our video cameras that you see on top. Will be able to detect how many people happen to be inside this meeting room and tell you, you know what, there's actually 4 people, the maximum capacity is 2. So it will give you guidelines saying you need to really change that. And will give you suggestions saying, you are in this room, there's another bigger room that you actually can book and it's available right now. Would you like to book it? And to really use AI and speech technology to really be able to schedule that meeting room for you. And you might have noticed that there's additional information about, hey, there is an issue with air quality. So air circulation was not really good. The room navigator that you see here at the bottom would really be able to detect the quality of the air. It will give you information about, hey, do I have really an issue where it's overcrowded or the quality of the air and the oxygen level is not good enough? It will actually be able to detect that information over and display it on the screen saying, quality is not really good for you. In this case. So this is really all part of smart workplaces that's transforming the experiences as we see it right now. We talked about meeting rooms, but how about desks, right? So I booked that desk when I kind of come in through the kiosk, and I booked that meeting room as well through that kiosk. And then this is what you see here, is I can come in to the desk, and you'll see that this actually desk, for example, that's on the left side, that shows the small signage right now, it's actually been booked under my name. And then that would immediately mean that the desk next door to it is automatically blocked. And how do you actually check into that desk in this case? You see it just like on the phone to the right here, you see that there is an icon QR code to check you in. So you really kind of know that this desk is booked for you. You scan the QR code with your mobile phone, and that will automatically in the back end show that this desk is actually right now reserved for you. This is the moment that you kind of gotten into your reservation. Once you're really done with, let's say, your session on the desk and so forth, you can end your reservation, and that will automatically trigger information about booking the next one or scheduling the cleaning schedule, which is very important. So how do you automate that booking process for the cleaners? You can actually do that based on the schedule after knowing that this desk or this corner was actually used as you see here. And let's say that there's someone who's actually not show up, so there was no presence of any information. We can actually block people from being able to use desks because until it's actually happened to be cleaned, we don't want people to use that desk again. And that's what you see in this experience right now. So this was a quick and small snapshot of how the Cisco technologies can completely transform how you do smart workplaces. Now let's move over to something else. which is we talked about changing workplace. We talked about smart workplaces and how we can really transform a safe return to office. But let's also consider the remote workers. If you still happen to be working remotely, how do you make sure that we have the proper capabilities to enable that user from both employee productivity and engagement, but also, very importantly, from a security perspective, because you are not there in the enterprise anymore. You're not within the company premises. You have to be, or let's say work-based premises, you happen to be working remotely, as we see most of the cases right now. So let's talk about secure remote work. How we can empower virtual team members to really work, collaborate in a secure fashion. And when really talking about collaboration and people really working remotely, we really want to consider what are the top of mind issues that CIOs or security information officers that they really have top of their minds. And let's start off to really talk about what are the top things, security concerns that happen to be from working remotely. And as you see on my right side here, you'll find out that the biggest issues that we have is all about the defense posture of the device that the user is using, because this is no longer connected to the enterprise. This is no longer protected by firewalls that we have, or no longer really be able to really have complete visibility into the traffic of that network connected to it. This is over the internet, and this could be connected over VPN, but then there's a lot of issue with the posture of that device. How do you make sure that this is still a very secure device? So for CISOs or CIOs, the top of mind is to really make sure that they have the proper posture, defense posture for the devices that happen to be connected remotely. How we do that is a very interesting solution we'll talk about in a couple of slides. But you can see another very big issue is how do you actually make sure that I want to give them the right access? I want to give them zero trust access to devices. I'm not going to trust anything until I identify who's actually using that device and are they allowed to access the resources. So how can you combine multi-factor authentication with zero trust policies in place? That's also a very important measure to take care of. So we talked about security as top of mind, especially for working remotely, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong if you really don't do the proper policies. And you get compromised credentials. You get people to really be able to try to attack vectors with a lot of devices connected remotely. They could really create a lot of backdoors connecting to your office or your data center or your applications remotely. So how do you actually make sure you mitigate that? That's where Cisco security comes in. This is security that's baked in, not bolted on, that would really be able to address 4 elements right now. So when we're really talking about secure remote work, we want to talk about these 4 elements. 1, we want to talk about user verification. Who is connected behind that device? How can I actually verify their identity? 2, once they really happen to be connected, how do you actually have the right granularity so I know which user is connected to which application? And is that in a proper posture? Is that in a proper policy? Or they have an issue with access? So how do you enable the zero trust capability, whether they happen to be inside the office or outside? I want to be able to do that. So zero trust becomes very essential. 3rd, how do you actually make sure that I mitigate? Because you never know what's going to happen. But if something happens, if something goes wrong, if something gets really breached or the multi-layer security defense that you have for your end users remotely, how do you actually mitigate that quickly? So that's very essential. So how do you do it before, during, and after an attack actually happens, and try to minimize the time for discovery and to be able to recover as soon as possible? So how do you actually protect against the zero attacks, against malwares, and so forth? That's very important to do it when you're working remotely. And lastly, how do you actually have the extended detection response, but also the visibility to be able to investigate what was going on in this case? And investigation security, on average, it takes you 86 days to really be able to detect what were the issues, what actually really hit the enterprise from a breach, a security breach, and so forth. How are we actually going to be able to take it from that time all the way to a number of hours? So how do you actually minimize that capability is very essential when you have complete visibility to do that. That's where SecureX comes into play, which I'll talk about also in a few minutes. So let's start off with the first and the most critical point right now, which is the user verification. I happen to be working remotely, right? How do you make sure that the man is the same person? Just like you do when you want to use a banking application. How do you make sure that I am the right user for that banking application for that account? That's when we introduced the technologies of multi-factor authentication, or MFA. But MFA used to be very much password-centric, and that is not secure enough. So what Cisco really announced at Cisco Live, just at the start of this month, we really talked about passwordless access for user verification. So we can use biometrics, we can use facial recognition, and we're able to really detect it into not just one factor, multiple factors in this case. Of course, we can still use a password if you want to. We can still use an SMS. We can still do the push notifications to mobile devices, but then you have the assurance that this user happens to be working remotely, is the right user. I want to automate this process. I don't want it to be complicated. With Cisco Duo, what you can really able to do is you can empower your employees the moment that they happen to be connected to enable multi-factor authentications per application policy. So you might be saying, hey, this application, I want to enable MFA with these sorts of biometrics. Or this other application, I want to enable it without VPN. But this ERP application, I want you to be behind VPN because I don't trust even the outside networks. And someone could be actually trying to really snoop. And this is not a cloud application. It's behind the scenes in this case. So how do you do VPN on application level? In this case, that's where Duo will actually help you get to that level as well. And that's what really very essential is you'll have complete visibility into not just MFA capabilities or biometrics, but then it will actually detect the device that's connecting on. Is it jailbroken? Does it have the latest security updates? You can do all that sort of inspection and post-or check before doing VPN, before allowing it access to applications, and before allowing it to really be able to interact and engage with other users. All being done using the Duo app that you have on desktop and mobile in this case. And of course, Duo does not really work, let's say, on its own. It can really integrate and provide complete synergy with the capabilities of any Connect and Duo together. So if you're doing VPN, I want to be able to still combine the VPN credentials to be multi-factor authenticated. And that's what Duo will allow you to really do, as you see in this picture. And it's as simple as pushing a message over to the mobile device, and you need to click on it. So I know that this is the actual identity of the user doing the VPN service and connect it back to the enterprise. I can make sure I do that with integration of Duo with any Connect. At the same time, the poster information that's there from Duo will be handed over to my any Connect client, and that will really allow me to make the decision. Okay, well, I know that this is the right user connecting, but do they have the right information? Do they have the right posture information in this case that will allow me to decide I'm going to let them in and connect or not? Or did they disable antivirus, for example? Or did they actually disable the capabilities of automatic updates? These sorts of little things could make a difference between being hacked or being breached and not being breached, and how quickly you can recover. And of course, we talked about this thing for user verifications, and Duo will give you that complete experience for multi-factor authentication and posture assessment. But then what you can really do in addition to multi-factor authentication is you have to think from connectivity, from network access. The traditional network was very much, hey, I am a remote user. I'm always going to do VPN, and that's the way I'm actually going to allow secure access to my information. But that doesn't scale. Imagine how much of VPN tunnels that you have to really manage and how much bandwidth you really have to enable. So you make sure that you actually backhaul all that traffic to the enterprise. And especially when it's actually a flipped environment. So the employees happen to be all remote and you're trying to enable that access. So what used to be 10, 20% of users working remotely, it's completely flipped and it's over, let's say 80 or 90% who happen to be working remotely right now. So how do you change that? And how do you actually change that access technology, but still try to be as good of an experience as possible? Because we don't want to impact people. We don't want them to connect to slow VPN tunnels that will really be over congested and will not provide you the right services. Enter Cisco Umbrella and our secure edge solution. So everyone is actually hearing right now about SASE and the importance of secure edge capabilities that will be able to give you the enterprise edge as close to the user as possible. But that enterprise edge does not live inside the enterprise anymore. This is part of cloud security. And this capability will ensure that we don't really care where you are at any time, at any point. You're always going to be protected because your first point of entry over the internet is going to be on a secure edge. Think of it like I'm going to create your own virtual firewall with its virtual IPS, with its own virtual malware protection, and everything from DNS security that we have inside the umbrella from day one, which is the best in class to protect against web attacks or these sort of threat vectors as we see exploding over time. So we make sure that we actually provide that complete umbrella of protection for all these sort of workloads across the, let's say, remote working environments. Whether you happen to be at a coffee shop or happen to be working remotely at home, you'll be able to have that secure edge and ensure you happen to be protected. And that is possible by leveraging the secure edge capabilities inside Umbrella. And of course, Umbrella, which we're really talking about here to really make sure that we have complete secure web gateway, we'll combine that with the capabilities that we have for the day zero attack. When something as a file is something's going on wrong, we can really leverage advanced malware protection to be able to immediately detect that this signature is actually a big threat, or to be able to connect to the cloud research capabilities inside Cisco Talos that will do a lot of billions of traffic that's being analyzed every single day to make sure that we're able to protect you and give you the right information that's saying this file that we actually done analysis on is actually that's been downloaded or just been shared over USB is malicious, and how can you really block that? And the same thing goes for emails. Emails are still by far the #1 attack vector that a lot of really social engineering or let's say attackers are trying to really do online by leveraging a simple email message, as you see here. And that's a big threat. And with the Cloud Email Defender that we have for email security that can be integrated with cloud, with on-prem or cloud mail systems like Exchange or Office 365, you'll be able to have protection of all the modalities that you have for communications. Email, web, chat, as well as any sort of traffic they want to redo, will be able to really protect that by combining the Umbrella AMP and email security coming together. Now, this is all good, but as we know that the average enterprise has roughly 26 security tools, 26, okay? And if you look into this plethora of tools, how do you actually make sure they have proper visibility into what's going on? So that's where SecureX comes in. That will completely give you the extended detection response and visibility across all the different network elements, Cisco and third party. So we'll aggregate the querying information from a single pane of dashboard, and we'll give you complete visualizations like you see here. And this comes in free by default with any Cisco security product. And very, very essential when you want to minimize response, when you want to investigate and you want to understand what is going on as quickly and as soon as possible. So bringing all these sorts of technologies together is very important. So we talked about multi-factor authentication, we talked about cloud email security, we talked about also the capabilities of endpoint security. we can combine that with the best-in-class collaboration suite, which is, we talked about the Webex suite, which also works very handily and very nicely remotely. And that gives you the nice fuse of hardware and software, like the headsets, the video devices, and so forth. And then this is actually all integrated with the security posture that we have. So it leverages MFA from Duo for multi-factor authentication. It leverages data loss prevention. It actually connects over to Umbrella to really make sure that we have proper access. It really can give you the posture that you want to redo from a security perspective to be completely, let's say, secure. But then at the same time, to really make sure that the employees are not hindered from their productivity and engagement across the enterprise. So it gives you that capability of borderless collaboration. Last thing I want to talk about. We talked about collaboration and how we really can have the capabilities of Webex as a suite for messaging, meeting, and calling. And we talked about security and how you really have MFA, network access, extended detection response with SecureX, and also cloud email security. But then how can you combine both of these things together? Because getting both is what your remote workers actually need to make sure that they're still productive, but they're still very secure. So Cisco is actually offering what's called right now Secure Remote Worker, which is a combined offering that has security and collaboration all under a single product SKU, a single line item, and it's all being based on knowledge worker count. So you tell me it's like, hey, enterprise-wide, I have 5,000 knowledge workers. The rest are frontline workers. That's it. I just need for 5,000 users as an example. And we'll combine all these 7 features or product capabilities that you see in this slide to make sure that it's easy for you to procure, deploy, and configure these capabilities. And Dimension Data will really be able to make sure that they have the proper service offering on top of that to make sure you have the best-in-class secure remote working experience. With that, I hope you really enjoyed the session. I want to thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Thank you, man, and always pleasure listening to you. We get excited and passionate with the offerings, what we have on table. I see that we don't have any questions, but there will be a follow-up email which is going out later today. And all our clients, please feel free either now or later, anytime you have any questions, you can reach out to me or Yaman. The contact details will be provided on the follow-up email with you. You'll have all the details to reach out to us.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
I think we can end this session, Yaman. So as we don't have any questions, we can end the session and we can send the follow-up email. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for your time and getting on call with us. Speak to you soon. Thank you.